I'm Jason with the All Things Open team. We're here with Nithya. Please introduce yourself to the All Things Open community.
Hey, Jason. Nithya Ruff, and it's wonderful to be here. I head the open source program office at Amazon, and I also am the chairwoman of the board of directors for the Linux Foundation. I've been doing open source since 1998 at Silicon Graphics, where I discovered open source. And since then, it's been open source at lots of different companies. Some of the projects I've worked on, things like Yocto project, which is an embedded Linux distribution builder, where I did community. I was also involved in the OpenStack project. You know, you tend to get involved in projects and stay with the project no matter which company you go to.
Yeah. The power of open source
That's
in
right.
another spectrum. Well, you have a lot of experience with open source program offices. What is an open source program office?
So open source program offices have become really important, especially for large organizations, but that doesn't mean small organizations can't have it. Essentially, when a company or an organization starts using open source, they discover that they have to answer a lot of questions on licenses, on can I contribute this? What do I need to do to release a project? And which projects do we work with as a company? And so on and so forth. So it is a small group of people, usually experts in open source or who come from an open source background, who create a policy document for the company to use, working with the legal team, and also administer, help for those who need questions answered. A lot of times we in Amazon, for example, we get thousands of tickets from our developers saying, and we answer them right away. But we also do strategy work for businesses who say, when should I open source something? And which organization should I join? Which foundation should I join? And how do we work in open source? So we do both strategy as well as tactical risk management.
Got it. What typical problems are OSPOs trying to solve?
OSPOs are typically, initially they get started because people are consuming open source and they have a lot of questions on the licenses. How do I comply with this license? Is it okay to use this license? Is it not okay to use this license? And then as the organization gets more sophisticated, it is, I want to start contributing. What CLAs should I sign? Which project should I contribute to? What's the best way to do it? How do I conduct myself in open source? How do I release this project? How do I maintain this project on behalf of the company? Which foundations do we join? It's a lot of different types of questions that come to the OSPO, including community building, including how do we communicate, what we do in open source. Lately, AI is important as well, right? And what is open AI and what's not, and how do we work in open source? And then security is another area. People say, if I discover an issue with an open source project, what's the best way to report it? What's the best way to patch it and fix it? And what can I expect from my open source community? And also, as you know, Jason, regulations are becoming really important these days. For a long time, open source kind of hid under a rock, but then now there's European regulation and there are US regulations and executive orders that we have to comply with.
How would an organization know that they need an OSPO? And are there any key metrics that they should be attuned to?
In a couple of the organizations that I started an OSPO, for instance, at SanDisk, we just were about to launch a very heavily open source based product. And we had all these questions and processes we needed to create in order to support that project. And we realized that other divisions in the company also had the same question. So I proposed that we start an open source office so we could help everyone systematically and create a process for how we work in open source more intentionally. In the case of another company like Comcast, everyone was going straight to legal, and legal got overwhelmed with all of the questions. And then the trigger was, we really need someone in engineering who kind of deals with developers and acts as a liaison between engineering and legal. So that's some of the triggers that, it's usually consumption and then leads to how do we handle legal kind of things. Metrics wise, it's good to track, how many tickets you're getting, how many contributions you're making. But one of the first things I would also do is understand how your company is consuming open source, which projects are important to you. Are we involved in those projects? And if not, why not? And we track a lot of these different metrics in terms of both consumption as well as contribution and releases that we make.
So I want to ask if that's a typical path. Is an organization, they're getting involved with an open source project and they just have a lot of unknowns. They don't have it quite standardized yet. So is that a typical, it sounds like that's what a typical OSPO would kind of come from, right? And sprout from, so to speak.
That's exactly right. It comes from someone using it and then having questions around the use, and then when the use is widespread, you really need a systematic way and an intentional way of doing a strategy and policy, and that's kind of what happens.
So historically, I think it started out as open source and standards.
Yes.
And that's exactly what this is doing, is creating standards within an organization so they can consume and contribute back to open source, right?
That's exactly correct. You don't want everybody second guessing or doing something differently. It's a matter of your brand, and also, frankly, having an OSPO attracts people to your company and developers to your company who want to work for a company that's OSPO friendly. When you establish an OSPO, you are putting up a flag saying we are open and we are collaborative and we want to work with other organizations.
Yeah.
So OSPOs often act as a bridge from org to org. It's very easy for me to pick up a phone and call my Microsoft counterpart or someone from Fidelity or other companies, because we all want to help each other and elevate, how our practices.
Hey, this is Todd with All Things Open. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate it. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button. We've got a lot of new content coming we think you're going to be interested in. One final favor, be sure to go to allthingsopen.org, allthingsopen.org to see everything that we do. Back to the video.
And there is an OSPO for OSPOs, yes?
Yes. Thank you for asking. So there is an organization called the To-Do Group, which lives in the Linux Foundation as a sub-foundation. And it is really an educational organization for anyone who wants to start an OSPO, wants to learn from each other. And they organize OSPOCon and, a lot of meetups, etc. Because all of us, start with lots of questions in our mind, and we need to mature.
Yeah.
And we can help each other do that.
Perfect. Well, thanks for answering that. Are there any best practices that you want to share with our community that if someone's getting started with an OSPO, that could just help them save time and just get them up and running quicker?
I think you don't need to be a big company to have an OSPO. It can be half a person or one person who's dedicated to answering questions and creating policy and standards around open source. So I would say don't wait to say it's only for big people. You can even start it. The second thing I would say is it's so important to have an executive sponsor, because for funding, for elevating the issues that you have, for making sure you have a room at the table for strategic discussions. Often you get forgotten, right? Because you're kind of this niche-y little group on the side.
Right.
And so you really need an executive sponsor who gets you. And it helps to also be in the right organization. For me, engineering is the right place to be. It's very hard to work, frankly, from legal. You tend to be very conservative in your thinking. And we, as OSPOs, need to bring in the norms of the community also into play. It's hard to work from marketing, and it's best really to be in engineering because that's your customer base.
Yeah. All right, Nithya, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your insights and advice. We'll see you at All Things Open.
I can't wait. I'm excited.
All right.
Thank you, Jason.
Bye.